Alrighty, in case you missed it, in the last video we printed up some miniatures using Bamboo Lab 3D printers, and I thought the results were really outstanding for being printed with filament, but also the really low barrier to entry, like you don't have to have any technical knowledge or whatever to get these printers working with really great results. It was about as plug and play as you could possibly make it. But man, some people are not happy to see miniatures made with filament printers, FDM printers, which I was not expecting. It really caught me by surprise. And so I think what we'll do this video is I'm going to paint up 3 of the different Terminators that were printed. So the one with the big cannon and accessory pack thing on his head, that was printed with the 0.2mm nozzle and the 0.06 high quality profile. The blue one is also 0.2 nozzle, I believe, with the 0.08 high quality profile, so slight drop in quality. And then the red Terminator is the 0.4 nozzle on the 0.08 high quality profile. So that's the lowest quality of the 3. But talking about the quality of these miniatures, I think is kind of missing the point. A lot of people were really defensive over resin, which was just wild to me to see, because it should be obvious that resin printing is not a great idea for a lot of people. Like, resin printing, if we're honest, kind of sucks. You have to go to all these extra lengths to make sure you can do it safely and responsibly. And a lot of people just don't want to deal with that, which is totally fair enough. And a lot of people don't want to deal with the goddamn high barrier of entry of going to the shop and paying for the actual, like, traditional plastic injection molded miniatures, which, let's be honest, if we're buying them from Games fucking Workshop, are just priced so ridiculously. Like, here in Australia, I think it costs me over $100 now for a pack of 10 intercessors, which is just absolutely stupid. And and that's why I got into 3D printing in the first place. I was like, fuck that. I want to paint Space Marines, and I can't justify that. That's like a big chunk of my earnings. So, like, no. Anyway, so I personally think it's amazing that FDM printers have come this far and now can be, in my opinion, based off of my experience with these Bamboo Lab printers, this is easier than resin printing. There's a lot less you need to know to just start doing this, and there's a lot less you need to buy. It's just this. I think this is great for a few different kinds of people. This is great if you want to dip your toe into 3D printing and you're happy to, like, sacrifice detail a little bit for the benefit of basically, not having to buy anything else and just being able to start making stuff right away without all these health considerations and everything else. But the other kind of person who's going to prefer this is just, someone who doesn't really care about getting the nth degree of quality, and they just want to have fun making miniatures, painting miniatures, and playing miniatures tabletop games with their friends. Because at the end of the day, at least for me, and I think most of you get this, the fun of this hobby is not squeezing every last ounce of detail out of these things. It's getting together with friends, making new friends, and killing each other with, like, dice. That's what this shit's about. And, like, the painting and the hobby and the crafting side, that's like a super expressive and fun and creative thing as well. Some people, I feel like, get so caught up on that as well. Like, honestly, who gives a shit about squeezing out every last shred of detail unless you, I don't know, display painting for a contest or for a client because you do it for a living or something? Fair enough. But to try and tell people that, like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't get an FDM printer for miniatures, oh, they're only good for terrain. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can print miniatures with them. I've demonstrated now that you could do it, and so I'm painting them up in this video. You're going to see more of my painting process in this video than I've ever really been able to show in any other video, because I always try and truncate it down as much as possible. But in this video, all the footage I have is just painting footage, so you're going to see, heaps of it. So I hope you like it. Let me know what you think. The end result, I think, is going to blow your mind. You're going to really be impressed with how these turned out, and it's not a complicated paint job either. So anyway, I felt the need to rant a little bit there. You can absolutely make miniatures with FDM machines. It's easier than resin. There's less risk associated with it. It's easier to get into. It makes a lot of sense. I'm going to keep ranting. I love resin printing, right? Like, if anything, I'm probably the biggest advocate on YouTube for resin 3D printed miniatures. I never shut up about it. Basically, every video is exactly that. Like, that's my jam. That's what I do here, is resin 3D printed miniatures. I love it. It's incredible. And I personally don't think it's that hard to get into. I think it's also easy. There's just these extra considerations, like safety's a big one. You've got to have some kind of ventilation. Those little carbon filters are absolute crap. Don't trust those. You got to have gloves, paper towels, alcohol. You're gonna spill resin. That's just a fact of life. Your process isn't going to be perfect out of the gate. Resin printing kind of sucks. Once you have been doing it for a little while and you get into the flow and you develop a routine that works for you, yeah, it's the easiest thing in the world. The leg up that FDM has here is that it's easy out of the gate, thanks to Bambu Lab and what they've done with these printers. So anyway, one of the criticisms that I saw again and again was people were saying oh, you can't paint these miniatures like you would with your resin miniatures or your store-bought plastic miniatures. Techniques like dry brushing and washes, speed paints, they're not going to work here. And that the layer lines, the pesky little layer lines, are going to ruin the experience for you. So I don't know how far along we are in the painting process right now, but I'm going to try all of that, and I am trying all of that. So to start with, I base coated all of these miniatures in black, and none of the footage you're seeing on screen is going to line up with me talking about it right now, and that's because of just the rapid turnaround time of this video, so I hope you can forgive me of that. I want to get this out while the conversation around the previous video is still fresh. And I'm using my absolute favorite airbrush. I've been using this airbrush, I think, for over a year at this point. I highly recommend it. This company, Gallery, however you say it. This is a 10 out of 10 airbrush. Use it with the 0.5 nozzle. I feel like 0.3 nozzles and airbrushes is just more hassle than it's worth. You're going to get a bunch of clogs, whereas the 0.5, that's where it's at. It's so good. And then I'm trying some new brushes here. These ones are from Rosemary & Co. That I bought a few months back, and I've been meaning to use them, so I'm glad to finally be using them now. And yeah, these seem nice. They have pretty stiff bristles on them or whatever, but they work well. I used Army Painter Air Matte White for this, and that works well. That is my favorite white paint as well. I'll leave links to everything in this video down below in the description so you can go buy them if you like, and that'll help me out as well. Oh, of course, and patreon.com, buymeacoffee.com. There's a ton of STLs that I can give you if you want to come support the channel directly. I do appreciate that. It is extremely helpful. But yeah, I didn't notice any issues dry brushing them. Everything looks good on all three of them, I thought. Although, and this is one of the downsides to PLA miniatures, is they are fragile because one of the swords broke. But that, it was easy to glue, and super glue seems to work really well with PLA, so not a big deal. You can even go further and use a soldering iron, I saw someone suggest. And then, yeah, I guess you could really, really strongly connect or fuse two PLA components together with a soldering iron. But then I think, yeah, maybe that's going to do some damage that you might not want, some cosmetic damage. Anyway, moving on, I grabbed some Slaughter Red speed paint from Army Painter. I think this is the V1 because later on I had some reactivation issues with it. But yeah, basically after absolutely smothering these Terminators in that Slaughter Red speed paint, the next thing I wanted to do is start bringing up the highlights. And I guess this is kind of like glazing, but unintentional glazing. I used an orange air paint and started just sort of painting that onto the highest topmost parts, like the tops of the shoulder pads and the top of the armor. I then started blocking out all of the cloth, rope, and purity scrolls, and I think I used pale sand for that. And this is where I noticed the reactivation issue. So I tried to do 2 or 3 coats of the stuff, and I was like, fuck this, because it kept reactivating. So then I went and grabbed matte medium, went over them again with that, and then went in and did a final pass of pale sand, and it worked. I also went in with the Goat of Metallics. This is the Vallejo metal color, which is an acrylic, which is nice. And yeah, this stuff just works like a dream. And I'm getting ahead of myself. The dry brushing worked great. I didn't see, did I mention that? I didn't see any problems with the dry brushing. I thought the outcome was what I would expect normally. It looked good. It created a nice definition between the high points and the low points. So I was very happy with that. The speed paints so far seem to be doing what I want the speed paints to be doing, although the Slaughter Red is definitely a less dynamic speed paint than some of the other ones. The difference between the highest high and the lowest low is not as great. And so anyway, I picked out a bunch of parts with the metallic, like the shoulder pads, any little decorative pieces around filigree stuff, vents, bolts, that kind of thing. And I really like this kind of paint job where I'm really limiting the amount of colors I'm using, but I'm trying to use them to create contrasting elements so that it's clear where one part ends and another begins, kind of thing. It just, I don't know, like, I find you can do a lot with a little when it comes to painting miniatures. Anyway, the next thing I did was I grabbed my absolute favorite speed paint of all time, which is Gravelord Grey, and then I went over all of the metallics with that and just like absolutely globbed it on so it can do what speed paint does. And yeah, it worked exactly as I wanted it to, and I think the effect is good. I also went in with, I think it was Bony Matter speed paint over all the purity seals, the rope, the cloth, before then going back with, what's it called? Pale Sand, I think, and then doing the final highlights with that. And you can hopefully see when I do my highlights, I'm super rough with it. I'm not very like careful with my edge highlights or whatever, and I don't think you need to be. I think if you just make a little bit of effort with edge highlights, even if it's like really rough effort, it looks better than had you done nothing at all. So it's always worth just a little bit of like just quick, fast and loose edge highlighting. I think it just does so much. And speaking of that, what also does so much, and something I try and do more and more lately because I love the effect so much, is you just create these like little crisscross patterns wherever there's like a big broad surface. So like the top of the armor above the helmet there, or like on top of the shoulder pads, on top of the knees, wherever there was room, I just put in these little crisscross patterns, and I used a really bright orange for it, and it looks fantastic, I think. If you disagree, well, shut up. No, don't. Leave a comment, please. Disagree with me in the comments. If you haven't left a comment yet and you're still watching, do us a favor. They really help me with spreading the whatever this message is. Thank you. So I think I spent the most time on this last step, which was just, going around adding little edge highlights, in no particular way, just kind of, again, it's just fast and loose and rough, and I don't really care if I do a good or bad job or not. It's just adding more contrast to the model, really. But actually, I don't think the amount of time spent on these miniatures was that much. I started at maybe about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I think I was done by like 11:30. So it was really quick to paint these miniatures up. It was not a big deal at all. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And again, that's the thing, right? Like, that's the thing people seem to miss, is like, you somehow can't have fun with the tabletop miniatures hobby if you're not using store-bought plastic miniatures, or you're not using resin printed miniatures. Like, what the fuck? No way. You can absolutely have a ton of fun, because I had a ton of fun painting these up. And by the end of this video, I think you'll agree, they actually look really good. And I feel really inspired by these, because it's been a few months since I've actually painted anything, because I've just been so busy on like video production. It was really nice to paint these up, and yeah, I feel inspired. Like, I want to go play some games. I want to do more of these. I want to have a whole army of these. Maybe not an army. Army's kind of, it's a bit, it's a lot of work. Maybe like a kill team. I could do like maybe a few more of these. Have a sick kill team. Yeah, it would just be fun. It would be really fun to go play some games with these models. I think they look sick. I'm inspired by them. I want to go have some fun with them. And that's what it's all about. And you can do that with FDM machines. And that's kind of amazing. And that is the whole point of this video. Fuck the haters. You can absolutely FDM print your miniatures, paint your FDM printed miniatures, and have fun doing it, and take them to games and kill your friends with FDM printed miniatures. Make new friends with your FDM printed miniatures. Yeah. Anyone who says you can't do this, or they talk down at you for doing it because, their miniatures are so much higher quality, fuck that person. If you are that person, you are no fun at parties. You should be aware of that. Okay. Huge shout out to Arcane Whiskers, Artificers Mini, Atlan Forge, Dungeons and Dreadnoughts, M3D Sion, Lucas with a C, Moid, Scouts of the Studio, and Tractor Minis for providing all of the awesome STL rewards this month for Once in a Six Side channel members. Head to patreon.com/once in a six side, or better yet, buymeacoffee.com/once in a six side. Subscribe at the STL tier or higher, and I'll see you in the Discord. There's still time to get involved in our print and paint. So print any of these miniatures you want, paint them up, get them in by, I think, the 26th of this month, and I will share them in a video before the month is over. All right, cheers, bye-bye.